Welcome back to another episode of With Love Mama, the podcast. I do apologise. I'm at the very end of a bit of a sinus cold flu moment that I've had the last few days, so I'm a little bit, maybe hard to understand, getting a little bit congested, but we're just going to roll with it. Today I wanted to talk about my feeding journey with my son, Kodak. It did not go as planned, but in the same breath, it went exactly as planned. And I have touched on this in previous podcast episodes, how I was really wanting to breastfeed and it didn't work for me the first time round. Looking forward to my next postpartum, which is in 6 months. Oh, wait. No. My next postpartum is only 4.5 months away, which is crazy. I'm so excited, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully experiencing breastfeeding. But I wanted to just share my journey with feeding my firstborn, because I was someone who truly never saw any other option aside from breastfeeding being an option, and I was really strong in that. It was something I really knew that I wanted to do. So my journey changing in that, which I'm getting into in this episode, is quite interesting, although I feel like I learnt a lot, and I don't hold any regret or any shame or any... I feel as though I've done a lot of processing around the fact that my feeding journey didn't go the way I desired. I will say it's interesting because I did suffer from postpartum depression, and I think there's a combination of the processing of that I didn't get to breastfeed Kodak being a part of that, and the there were moments of I really wish I got to experience that, and the wow, I wouldn't even say that I shamed myself or that I felt guilty, but it was just oh my goodness, I'm missing out on that beautiful experience. Although it's really funny because when I've even had healings done since having Kodak, and I've literally had the healer say to me, wow, your body just thinks that you're still breastfeeding because of how nurturing you are with bottle feeding. And I remember hearing that and being oh my goodness, that's so true. I still am so intentional, well, especially when he was really only on milk. I was very much so very intentional with it and tried to make it a very connective and beautiful experience as I could, being that he was bottle fed. But yeah, it didn't go how I desired, but I also in the same breath think that where my mental capacity was personally postpartum, that potentially breastfeeding just didn't work out the first time around because my capacity was already so full. And I wonder how I would have gone if I was the sole person for everything. And I'm not saying I couldn't have done it, and I'm not saying I'm glad it went the way it did, but I'm just saying that I think it happened for a reason. I touched on in I think my first or second episode, Jai and I went through quite a rough time postpartum with Kodak, and we ended up getting external support, and now we're in literally the best place ever. But I just wonder if I was have to exclusively breastfed, if that my mental health would have been worse or if it would have supported it. I'm not sure. We'll never know. I just have those thoughts, and I guess I'm sharing that too because I know there are so many women out there who all they wanted was to breastfeed and it just didn't happen for whatever reason, and some women literally cannot, and I felt as though I couldn't with my mental capacity. And I'll explain everything from my journey, and I just hope this reaches someone who maybe is going into motherhood for the first time and feels a lot of pressure. That I'm not promoting formula feeding when I'm speaking in this episode. I'm just promoting that as a mother, you always have to do what you know is best for you and your child. So however that looks for you is perfect, and people are going to judge you whether you do, whether you don't. And that's relating to anything in motherhood. People are going to judge you if you co-sleep, if you don't co-sleep, if you rock your baby to sleep, if you don't rock your baby to sleep, if you bottle feed, if you breastfeed. You're going to get people that judge you if you exclusively pump. You're going to get people who are going to judge you just for literally everything. And I think that's a huge part of motherhood, is just being ruthless in, well, this is actually what is fucking working for me. So I personally, in my journey, was just so like, what happened with me and my choice to formula feed Kodak, I know how strong-minded I am. I know how like strong my mindset is. I know who I am, I guess, and I really back myself in that. I mean, look at the birth experience I had, and I genuinely believe that is like solely from like my mindset and my strong belief system and all of the things. So when my breastfeeding journey did not go how I originally pictured, I knew that the decision I was making was actually from a place of, this is the correct decision for me in this moment right now. And I felt really like almost settled in that. So as a mum, you just have to sometimes go against what other people believe is right. And people, like I just said, people are always going to judge you. There's always just going to be something, because people just are like that. But if you feel solid in it and it actually supports you, your child, your family, then that is actually the right choice, right? So with Kodak, my breastfeeding journey, I had my beautiful birth, and then after birth we had a little bit of a complication where I didn't quite hemorrhage, but I did have a bit of blood loss, which was super helpful having the midwives here to support that. I do think it could have been managed a little bit differently, just in how some of the things were managed in that. I'm not going to go into it, but I think the experience, especially since now I have a new midwife who I'm going to be home birthing with this pregnancy, and speaking with her about the experience that we had, it could have just been handled a little bit differently by the midwives that were here. But at the same time, just like my midwife said, she wasn't actually here, so she can't say that anything was right or wrong. But I guess I've just had that conversation. I've vocalized it a lot with people. Jai and I had a lot of discussion about the afterbirth in therapy, because it was a lot for Jai with what was happening, and it wasn't anything crazy. Like, I didn't have to be transferred to hospital or anything, but it was just a little bit of a scare, a little bit of a jump scare, if you will, where everything was fine, right? But it just had a bit of delay in and this is where I think could have been handled better, is a word I will use. I think it could have been handled better, where I was losing a bit of blood. I was asking for food. I was being denied it because they wanted to check if I had any tearing first. And also, I was not holding my son. Jai was in the other room with him. And I didn't get to hold Kodak for, it was around an hour or so. I have like the timestamps on my like birth, like what they printed out for me. And it was quite a while. I didn't get to hold him after birth. So I held him, for like the first half an hour, because we did the delayed cord clamping and everything. But then I felt the urge, okay, I want to get out of the water. I hadn't birthed my placenta yet. And yeah, it kind of just, my placenta, I guess, was just detaching, and I didn't lose blood throughout my like actual birthing or anything. So the amount of blood that I did lose now after having discussion with my midwife and after looking into it a bit, it actually was a normal amount of blood. It just seemed anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But basically, I held Kodak for that bit. Jai cut the umbilical cord, and then I had this bit of blood moment happen. And I actually wasn't even holding Kodak for that time. And if you know anything about like our bodies, we just gave birth to our child. Of course, we should be holding it, and that lowers our stress response, which can lower our risk of postpartum hemorrhaging and all of the things. So I do wish that I was holding him, and potentially that could have made a difference to my breastfeeding journey too, because I feel like I was, my labour and birth was so fast that I almost didn't even get to process it. And then I had him, and it was like, oh my goodness, what the heck? And then I was like, okay, I need to get out of this water. And then we kind of went into my bed, and then yeah, there was a bit of bleeding, and then Jai was holding him, and he was just sort of sitting in the room like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? And he was a bit traumatized from it, and it was just a whole thing. And then like an hour or so later, something like that, then I sat back down on the couch, and the midwives were like, I still remember asking for food and being like, one of my close friends had made me a chicken broth, and it was in my fridge ready to go just to heat up on the stove. And I just remember them being like, no, like, you know, we have to check if you've had any tearing, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember thinking, like, I feel so depleted right now. I need something to ground me. Like, my head, I just wasn't in my body. Like, I was very much like, oh my gosh, like, so much has just happened. It's now, like, 5 p.m. I'm just holding this child who I just birthed, and I'm looking at him like, what the fuck? Like, you know, it was just a lot for me. And then the midwife was, they were like, you need to feed him. He needs to get on the boob. Like, he needs to get on the boob. He needs to eat. And I was like, oh my God, same, sis. Like, literally same. And like, I remember, I've like spoken this story so many times to like friends and stuff. And I remember at the start, I would always be like, I know this sounds selfish, but no, it actually fucking doesn't. Like, to give, you need to have, your cup needs to be full. I felt fucked, and I needed food. Anyway, I remember I was like quite pushy about that though, because I was just like, oh my gosh, like, actually give me something. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. But then I remember sitting on the couch, and yeah, they were like, you know, he needs to feed, blah, blah, blah. And all I wanted was for my baby to do the crawl, to find my nipple and to latch on, and just that beautiful primal experience I just wanted so badly. And I knew how special that would have felt. And the midwife unfortunately just put Kodak straight onto me and sort of like positioned my boob, and, you know, kind of, and like, I guess just trying to like make sure that he knew how to feed. And like, I don't know, I feel like there was a bit of like the fear there, you know, it was like we need to make sure that everything's gonna fucking work out. Like, it already had worked out. I just needed some soup, for God's sake. Anyway, I remember missing out on that experience of him finding it, and like, she kind of just put him on me, and he had a feed, and then we swapped boobs, and then I feel like that was good. That was like an hour or something, and then he needed another feed maybe, and then that was when I'd eaten and I was back in my body. They'd checked me for tearing. Everything was all fucking Gucci. Like, we were back in our body. We were like, okay, we'd kind of processed it a little bit. The second midwife had left, so my main midwife was only here because like the second midwife is really only here to support with the baby. And I guess that's why she was probably rushing him feeding, because she just wanted to like get the fuck out, which is not okay, of course. But like, you know, I guess that's probably what was happening, because she was only here to like write up the report for the baby and all that. And I'm just assuming here, like, don't take my words for gospel when I say that. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't know, that afterbirth experience just felt like a bit handled incorrectly, I guess. Could have been handled better, but anyway. Then I went to do the second feed, and it was the most excruciating pain I have ever felt. Yes, I understand that is what happens, but not only that, I felt like my body went into shock, and it was like this mental, like I was like completely triggered, because as I said, I really feel like my afterbirth experience could have been handled differently. And so in the moment when that was happening, when I was having a little bit of blood loss, and, you know, just before my placenta was born, all the things, I was literally having some thoughts of like, am I going to fucking die? The way they were reacting, you know, it was like, what's happening here? Jai was having the same thoughts in the other room. So all of that's happened. And then I'm still up in that, like, out of body, like, what the fuck has just happened to me? And then that's when the baby has just been put straight onto my boob. And then I feel like my brain connected my afterbirth experience and the way the midwives reacted with the breastfeeding, because once I was grounded back in my body and tried to feed that second time, it was like my whole brain was like triggered, like I was actually having like a whole body response mentally and like physically. I remember I was even shaky, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, and like I said, I am so strong-minded. Like, girlie has been through some shit in her life, and like I literally was like, my mind was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. It was just not okay. So then we tried in a different position, lying down in my bed to try and see if that would help me with like the actual like physical pain. And we tried, you know, my midwife by this time, like she was like really supportive and like really trying to help me. And I was just like, I actually can't do this. And it was not just the physical, it was like the way my head, like I mentally was like not okay. And I was like, what am I supposed to fucking do? Also, I hadn't collected any colostrum through my pregnancy because for some weird reason, every time I tried to, I got extremely nauseous. So I ended up not actually collecting any colostrum because every single time I would try to collect it, it wasn't just like coming out of my nipples for me in my pregnancy, which doesn't indicate anything right or wrong. It's just like my body, it just wasn't really happening. Like I had it a little bit, but it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't enough to sort of collect. I would have had to sit there and try to collect some. And yeah, every time I did, I got so incredibly nauseous that I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, I guess like I don't have any collected, but like it'll all be good. Like I actually just had no like thoughts in my head that like breastfeeding just wasn't going to be an option. I had not done any research into formulas. I did literally have no idea. We had a sterilizer, we had bottles, but that was because we valued like that we knew that we wanted Jai to be able to give Kodak like some breast milk occasionally in a bottle, which is why we had them. But thankfully we did, and I think one thing I wish I did, and it's not coming from a regretful place because everything ended up working out, but I wish I did do some research into formula so that first formula he had was a higher quality formula. By the time Jai had to go to the shop to buy formula, it was probably about like 6 or 7 p.m. because Kodak was born at 3 o'clock, and then we had like the whole afterbirth moment, and I did feed him at like 5 o'clock, and then I think we were trying again at like 6 o'clock, like an hour. I don't know, like the timeline I can't be like exact, but it was dark, I remember that. So Jai just went to the local IGA, and like the midwife was just like, okay, just go like get whatever, like don't, I think she did say don't get a goat milk one, which I'm not really sure of the reasoning because we ended up actually putting him on goat milk after I did my research. But we just got this random one, and I remember like it was on the bench for like 2 or 3 days. My mum came to stay, I think the next day, and then on like the second day or something, she was like, oh, have you seen like the ingredients in here? And I was like, no girl, I haven't seen the ingredients in there. And then we like looked, and I actually nearly fell over and died because of all the seed oils and just like things that are in the formula, which I don't even know why they're on the market. But anyway, my mum found we were doing a bit of like research and like trying to find something, and I was just feeling so overwhelmed, and I did get the baby blues around that like day 2 or 3, and it was just like, it just felt like a lot. It was like, oh my fucking God, like my breastfeeding didn't go as planned, and like now he's drinking this, you know, whatever. Jai was really good, and like he did say to me, you know, we value our health a lot, like in our home, and he did say, like, I remember him being like, dude, like, we're stressing over some seed oil in his formula, but he's probably going to stop at the BP when he's older, driving his like car, and order from the hot box. Like, we can chill out, it's okay, like, let's just take it one step at a time. I just remember Jai saying that, and I was like, oh my God, so true. But anywho, Jai, yeah, got the formula from the IGA, and then we were on the formula train, and I actually have the Spectra breast pump, and the next day I had a lactation consultant come over, and she was kind of like, oh, we can try the breastfeeding thing, but she wasn't super pushy about it. Like, she was just like, oh, you know, like, whatever you think, like, whatever. No, she wasn't that chill, sorry. She was just like, here to support me in whatever I needed, and I was just like, look, I'm fucking terrified. And I was so terrified because like the feeling I was getting, the whole body response, it was actually like I had PTSD almost. Like it was actually so intense. I cannot explain it to you. The intensity mentally, physically that breastfeeding was giving to me, it was just not it. And I remember just being like, I feel solid in formula feeding. I actually feel really solid in that. So yeah, in hindsight, I think if I did just give myself a try once my milk had come in and it wasn't just colostrum, potentially I could have ended up pumping even, but you know, it just didn't go that way. So we're just not holding shame, or we're just not holding any judgment on myself. Like that is just how my journey went. First time mum, you can't know fucking everything and you can't make every decision. You know, it's already like you've just welcomed a child into this world. You've just become a mother. You now have to care for this whole human. You don't really have the capacity mentally to be like making decisions from like a grounded place, if that makes sense. So I made this decision and I did put thought into it, and it was like, no, actually this does feel really aligned for me, because I need to be the best mother I can be, and I am not the best mother I can be in that state, like my body trembling and my mind going to dark places. It just wasn't it, you know? I just knew that. So anywho, my mum ended up coming home from the organic store with some cabbage leaves to help my milk dry up, and the Little Oak goat milk formula. So the Little Oak has got sunflower oil in it, but it's like high aloic sunflower oil. It's got great ingredients. It's goat's milk. And we had Kodak on that for the first, I'd like to say, 4.5 months of his life. And I felt really solid in that. It was the best quality one that I could access, that I really could find and everything. I also added the BioCuticles Baby Biotic to it, because I just knew he wasn't getting from my milk, obviously, those probiotics and those beautiful gut building everything. So I was trying to really up his the quality of his formula as best as I possibly could, and that worked really well. And then around the 4.5 to 5 month mark, he was getting a bit constipated, and I ended up looking at some reviews, and that does happen to some kids, some babies. Sorry, I just got a notification saying that my Uber is almost here, my food, which is so great because I'm getting starving. Anyway, so we ended up swapping him to an organic dairy based formula, and then that worked until he was a year old, and then he's not on formula anymore or anything. But I wanted to share this story because, one, it's my story. Two, it is, I think, a really nice thing for mums to hear when your feeding journey isn't going how you thought it would. I also think that I didn't educate myself enough on breastfeeding and all of that either, because I wasn't expecting that this could have happened to me, or that I could have had that sort of response. And I just wanted to share it because when I did share on my Instagram, I can't believe that my feeding journey went this way, I had so many mums being thank you for fucking sharing this. I feel so seen, or this happened to me as well, or blah, 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 blah. And I actually haven't received any hate from people throughout my journey of sharing that I didn't breastfeed. If anything, I've just had unwavering support from everyone. So I just also want to share that, because it's oh my God, guys, I'm getting so out of breath. The pregnancy, out of breath moment is just not a thing. I mean, no, it is a thing. It's not a vibe. Holy crap. I think it's because I just got excited that my Uber is actually here, my food. Thank God. Anyway, people have just been super supportive, and I guess I also want to share it from that place, because it can feel for a lot of women they're doing the wrong thing or making the wrong choice, whatever. And just know, as a mum, things aren't always going to go to plan, and you're always going to make the right decision. So I hope this episode helped someone. I hope you enjoyed hearing my story. And I also hope that postpartum next time for me, I do get to experience breastfeeding. So thank you for listening to this. And don't forget, if you're not already, to follow the podcast, rate the podcast, do all the things to help it grow and reach other mamas. And I'll be back in your ears next week. Bye.